What's going on, everybody? This is Raw Dog Sports. I am Mike. That is Evo. You're my boy, Blue. We have got a banger episode today. We're going down the NFC side, and we're going to do some draft grades. We're going to talk the consensus board and why everybody hates Arif Hasan, even though they shouldn't. We're going to talk about teams that overdrafted guys. We're going to talk about some guys that got some great value too. Evo, my man, we're going to break down your Vikings today as well at some point. I'm excited to hear your take. Obviously, we were out at the draft. We didn't see each other during the draft, so I didn't get your live reaction to Vikings picks as it was happening. So I cannot wait to be here and talk with you about all of these picks when we get to the Vikings. But my man, welcome in. How you doing? Back at home. Like I said, we were just out in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's always good to be home, but damn, did we have a fun time. And I'm sure that we'll always be able to remember it because, Mike and I made a playlist, Turning the Corner. It's on Spotify. People are probably going to find it sometime in the future from him and I getting our kissies on and stuff like that out there in Pittsburgh. It's actually not Mike in the Diana Rossini playlist on Spotify. That's completely separate.
Not me. Not me.
That's but we made our own playlist, and it's just cheek noises, just constant. So that's a lot of fun. But yeah, happy to be back here in Arizona. Happy to be going over stuff with the draft. Look, it's been a long draft season. It always is. It was didn't get a ton of sleep out there in the pit. And that's perfectly fine. It was a lot of fun. It was great to meet everyone from Sportsocracy, Jeremy Green, Tank Spencer, David, the crew. It was a great time. Really opened up my eyes to a lot of stuff at the NFL, which is great. And I'm looking forward to doing that in the future and trying to build up Raw Dog Sports and everyone else as we go along.
Yeah, man, those guys are great. Tank went fucking viral as shit while we were out there. I think they're at like almost 12 million views. That's incredible. Jeremy, kind of the ringleader of that entire circus we had out there. Bill Workman, great dude. Smart as shit in football. Dubs, long hair. Love Dubs. Me and Dubs are symbiotic in a lot of ways, so I love me some Dubs. And then Dave, man, my favorite Canadian for sure. Love those guys and very happy to be a part of that group, that crew. We're going to be doing a lot more work. I believe the next thing is going to be Hall of Fame. So, and that's right in my backyard. So I'm very, very excited to see what we can do there at the Hall of Fame. But
Dubs feels like the group's PFT. I hope he doesn't take this the wrong way. It's like the Dollar Tree PFT because of the hair and everything. It's what it makes me think.
Absolutely. Tip Tap, what's up, man? Appreciate you for hopping in here. Yeah, Evo. So what was your favorite part of the draft experience? I know that there was a lot of shit going on outside. My favorite part were the big ass fucking cookies that they had catered to us. The food, everybody was saying, oh, yeah, they got catered food. It was very okay. Thank you, NFL, for giving us free food. Love it. Appreciate that. But it was okay. Those fucking cookies, though, holy shit, they were good.
Yeah, it's the food. I mean, I understand that part of it. They can definitely skimp on that because it's just there for sustenance. Because if you're doing your job, you're talking a lot. Quicker rounds this year, which it was interesting. It felt like the NFL almost created a problem because we as fans and people watching the draft, maybe from your couch at home or on your phone, you are like, okay, let me see the picks. Let me see the picks. Yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes of teams trying to move up, move down, analyze their boards and who they want to take. But as a fan watching, you're like, this needs to go quicker a lot of times, which I don't necessarily get upset by picks taking so long because it gives me time to process personally. But the NFL changed things this year where the picks were in 8 minutes at most. But the NFL kind of seemed to stick with its previous schedule. And if we know one thing about the NFL, they want their money, which means there has to be commercial breaks and things like that. And it felt like, especially the first round, you've got again, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. The player, if they are there live, they need to get them up, get that reactions of them crying, taking the phone call. They need to print off the jersey for them. They need to get the hat prepared, camera crew to follow them around the whole nine, get them out to the stage, hug Goodell. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in between those picks. And yeah, it could theoretically be done in 8 minutes, but these teams aren't taking full 8 minutes. A lot of them are going quicker. Some of them are taking that, up to the full 8 minutes, but the NFL still wants its ad revenue. It still wants those commercials in there. And so you got bands playing, going long. It was just like
the fucking band. So everybody in the media room, I can tell you, was furious with the band. We're like, get the goddamn band off the stage, because we were even farther behind than you guys were. So we're like trying to have reaction and go over all this shit. And fucking Roger Goodell's like, hey, trumpet player, shut the fuck up. Yeah. But dude, I was wondering if you guys were having a very similar experience out there. If you guys were thinking this band needs to get off the fucking stage so we can hear these picks.
Yes and no. So I'll say this: if I was a Pittsburgh native and a Steelers fan, they were obviously vastly overwhelming the stadium and the outdoors area. You did have representation for pretty much every team out there. But if you were part of that Pittsburgh group, it's the same thing that if you go to a home football game, you're surrounded by your fans. And so it's like a camaraderie type thing. And rah-rah, everyone's happy, everyone's talking. But if you're not part of that, which, I wasn't, I'm there to enjoy taking the draft, see what's going on. It's a little bit more different. Whereas if I am sitting home on my couch, I'm getting to, again, like I said, take in everything that's going on, synthesizing myself, and listen to analysis from whoever I want to listen to, whether that be a podcast or a YouTube page like us while simulcasting the draft, or your Kuipers and things like that. So it did make it feel like there was a long time between picks, and the band definitely didn't help. But again, that's all part of the movie magic of putting on the draft, is they do need to build in buffer times in between. But like I said, I feel like it's created a bit of a problem for the NFL, because they leaned into, we want to have this more rapid, because today's society, we need instant gratification. So they want it to happen quick, but they still want those commercials and stuff. So it still felt like it took a long time. It was a weird, interesting dichotomy. The NFL isn't going to be able to drop its ad sponsors and the commercials and all that stuff. So how they approach the draft going forward with shorter rounds is going to be really interesting, because you can't add pauses in there. You can't be like, okay, we're going to do the first 4 picks, and then we are going to have a segmented 3-minute commercial break, and then we're going to start picking up the picks again, because that's a BS way of doing it for teams who get an extra amount of time, or whatever you want to call it. So, it was cool in the crowd for sure. If you are a fan of a team and the draft comes where you're at, absolutely go. Even if you're not, it's a fantastic experience. It's great for the family. Tons of kids activities to do, tons to see. It's absolutely worth going. But if it were to ever come to Minnesota, it's absolutely something that I would want to go do, because if you can have that camaraderie with your fan base, it's excellent.
Yeah, I did not get to go to the one here in Cleveland. I had just missed that. We were not back out here, but you know what? I enjoyed the one that I got to go to now, and I cannot wait to go to the next one. But all things being equal, give me the combine over the draft. Combine was way more intense. Like, it was more labor intensive, but man, there was so much shit going on constantly. So, but my man, are we ready to start getting into this, into the show a little bit? Start getting into some of these picks. Maggie, what's up? Hello. Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah. I'm ready to get into it, man. But we do need to kind of preface the whole thing here is we are doing draft grades to an extent. And that's caused a whole hubbub, and it does every year. And we completely get it. It is, you won't know what these players are that were selected until 3 to 5 years down the line. Or in some players' cases, like a Sam Darnold, you won't know until they're on their 5th team. if they're going to turn out to be anything. People don't just immediately plop into a team and develop and become really good. We won't know exactly how good these players are. And so is it a draft grade on the player or the team of where they're going to be? No, but we have to have some sort of a reference point to say, like, did this team completely fumble the draft? Did they take guys completely way off of consensus, or were they reaching too much, or did they get a ton of steals? Because a lot of times teams will get tons of steals and it just turns out, and their steals according to the consensus boards, the team will actually not have turned out that, or the draft class will not be that good. If you look back at the Seattle Seahawks, when they took Russell Wilson, they were getting D and F grades for taking Bruce Irving, who still, not a fantastic player, but getting Russell Wilson. And that was the same one that they got, or draft that they got Bobby Wagner in. Just getting those two players alone, that's an A draft out of their entire class. But they were getting terrible grades right after the process. Right. This is more of an exercise of, did we like the players that teams selected? Do we think that their process made sense? Do the players kind of fit with that roster or not? And were there other directions that we would have gone? It's not like if a team gets a bad grade that this was a bad draft, because we just won't know. It's more about the process at this point. And the other part of that, which you brought up Arif Hasan earlier, who I have absolute mad respect for. He's catching so much heat because for years now, he's put together one of the most all-encompassing consensus boards out there. But people need to understand, he is not creating a board. He is synthesizing information from all of the boards out there, from analysts and experts who he vets and takes their boards and combines them into one board. It is not him being like, oh, I don't like Daniel Jeremiah's board. This guy is too high, so he's actually going to get dropped in a little lower. It's no, he takes the averages of all these boards and fits them all together. So that way you can see a true consensus of what I believe like 150 of the top media members, analysts, all put together. So you can kind of see his consensus board. And it doesn't mean the consensus board is right.
Correct.
But the way that things have bared out over time since this has been tracked is that the consensus board is usually pretty good about predicting whether or not a player is going to be good. Of course, it's never 100% spot on. If it was, we wouldn't have a draft. Like, people would just take the consensus board and immediately go down it like a laundry list based off of their needs and their horizontal boards. But still, it does a very good job of saying, hey, if a player was reached on, the chances of them reaching their potential are going to be lower. If a guy is lower on the consensus board, his odds of hitting and being a good player, a great player, a Pro Bowl player, or Hall of Fame player, they change dramatically. It doesn't mean that there's not outliers. There's outliers in every data set. And so people are getting upset because this was a very weird draft.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of players, it was teams taking their flavor of ice cream rather than going off of a lot of these boards. And people are trying to look how to point fingers and things like that. And the consensus board gets referenced a lot, but it's not that the consensus board is wrong. It's just, this was a weird draft, and we will see how things bear out, but it is still a good data point to use in a holistic evaluation of a draft class, or a holistic evaluation of prospects in general, and where they're selected, if they should have been selected, XYZ. So I'm sure we'll get hate for our thoughts and grades on these teams. 100%. That's perfectly fine. If we were going to be right in what we're saying today with all of our thoughts, we probably wouldn't be doing this show. We would probably be on our respective teams' front office staffs, because we're Nostradamus, right? That's just how it's going to be. If you disagree with us on any of the grades that we're giving or the thoughts that we're giving on these classes, we would love to hear it, because guess what? That's just more data. That's more information. We're not 100% in tune with all these teams. I get to go over my Vikings today. I'm a lot more in tune with them than I am with other teams. And that means I'm going to have a very different perspective on this draft class than someone who's a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals. So give us your thoughts on your team, so that way we can understand why you like or dislike the picks, where they were taken, and how they're going to fit in with your rosters.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about, kind of aggregating information. Producer Amber in the background has kind of reminded me we should talk about where we're aggregating some of our information as we go through this as well. So we got sharp football analysis we are going to use to go over kind of value of players. I have ESPN up, and then we're also going to use NFL.com. That's where we're kind of getting consensus board things and some of the other stuff. So if you're wondering where the fuck we're pulling our information from right now, that is also where you can find it. But, my man, we ready to get into number one, Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, so we are just going to be doing the NFC today. Arizona Cardinals are the first team up. They started out the draft with a bang, taking Jeremiyah Love at pick number 3. Yeah. Looking through the rest of this class, we've got guard Chase Basantis, Carson Beck, Caleb Proctor, Reggie Virgil at wide receiver, Carson Scherer, and Jaden Williams at tackle at pick 217 for their last pick of the day. I didn't personally love this draft. This team is very much so in rebuild mode. I've said on some of our mock drafts and stuff before, I love Jeremiyah Love. Yep. I had him as like one of my top 2 players in the class. Yep. And so, and one of a very small handful of blue chip guys. So how hard can you knock a team for taking a blue chip talent? That is looking at it and being like true BPA. And that's kind of what I feel like the Cardinals had to do here because they have James Conner. They signed Tyler Algier. They've gotten a decent running back room.
Very running backs now.
Yeah. Running backs typically don't make or break a roster, especially when you were in this heavy of a rebuild. It's something that we talk about all the time in the show. Foundation. You need foundational pieces. By the time this team potentially hits their high water point in a couple years, Jeremiyah Love's going to be due for a new contract.
For sure. Well, and not only that, you just paid a bunch of money to a guy in Tyler Algier to come in and what I thought was going to be your lead back role. And I'm sure he thought so the same fucking thing.
The reports out today are that he's not necessarily too pleased because he was kind of sold like I'm coming in to be the lead back. This is my time to shine. I've been behind Bijan for a while. This is my time to shine. And then they go and they select Love with the 3rd pick.
Yeah. So because of these types of things, I knocks my grade and ranking of this draft down as well, even though they drafted one of the top 2 players in the fucking draft. So it's really hard to do, but the position need didn't fit. The position value obviously doesn't fit based on today's NFL running back at 3. So you look at the rest. I like a Basantis. I really like a Carson Beck. He was my QB 2. I think that's great for them because you know what? Jacoby's going to start and Carson can still probably sit and learn and rest that arm some more. The farther he gets removed from Tommy John, the better. So I don't dislike what they did in the draft. I just, at the top, it makes no sense. And I love Jeremiyah Love. Like they must have not have been able to find a trade partner to move out of that because I mean, there was plenty of people trying to move. There were plenty of moves that were made, but I don't understand why that's the pick with what you already have in place.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I love Jeremiyah Love. I think he's going to be a fantastic player, and I think that he could be really good this year. Theoretically, I mean, you have a fantastic 1-2 punch, a la what the Lions had with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Right.
If things start to hit sooner than later there for Arizona, it's just, to me, the process wasn't great. You hear the term big board and horizontal board all the time. Horizontal board is a big board that is slated towards your needs. Sometimes just pure talent outweighs that. It obviously did in this situation. But I didn't like the process of taking Love there at 3. I would have much rather gone with an offensive lineman, which is still a big position of need for them, especially when this isn't going to be the quarterback draft or that's next year. Basantis, I do love. That is one of those foundational pieces that's working on your lines. That's going to help things. Carson Beck at pick 65, I feel like that's still a little bit rich for my blood. However, I do think that when you do not have a quarterback or you have a quarterback going towards the end of their time, of which is not necessarily the situation there in Arizona. I like Jacoby Brissett, but they just don't have a quarterback for the long-term solution. Taking dart throws at quarterbacks is never a bad thing. Taking them at pick 65 when there's a lot of high-value players there still available, that's something I didn't like when you probably could have gotten them at least around later at pick 104. But if Carson Beck 3 years from now is their starting quarterback and is a 15th best in the league, that's a home run. I just don't know that that's going to happen. Obviously, some people are down on Carson Beck. I know you like him a lot. My favorite pick out of this group was Caleb Proctor at pick 104. I was a big fan of him. He has a little bit less sand in the pants than you would want from a traditional defensive tackle, and he played at a much smaller school there in southeastern Louisiana. But the guy's physical traits and measurables of his RAS, it's pretty damn good. He's going to need more development because he's jumping up not just a tier in college, but into the NFL. So it's going to take a little bit. But that's the type of guy that I'm cool with taking a shot on at pick 104 early there in the fourth round. And beyond that, I feel like it was just kind of a so-so. I mean, they obviously took guys that they liked with Reggie Virgil and Carson Sherrar and things like that. So I feel like the top end where they really needed to make their nut, they got good players with their first two picks. But that first pick, with how much value there is, I really would have liked to have seen them leverage that into something else. And we don't know if the trade just didn't materialize. So,
yeah. So looking at the Sharp Football analysis, one of the numbers they have here is the draft capital over expected. The lower the number, the better. And the Cardinals ranked 28th at a 1.9. For some context, the worst team was the 49ers. We'll get to them. And the best team was the Commanders. We will get to them. And there's a pretty big delineation between the best and the worst. The Cardinals actually fall kind of somewhere right in between how good the Commanders were and how bad the 49ers were, but still ranked 28th. Little preview when we get to the 49ers picks.
Yeah.
But
yeah, overall, like not a big fan. I think it was a bad process.
I agree, man. I agree. We ready to move on to the Falcons?
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, Atlanta Falcons. They didn't have a first round pick in this draft, but started off by taking Avion Terrell at pick 48. Avion Terrell originally kind of slated as a first round guy who fell due to some size and injury concerns later in the process. I think he pulled up with a hamstring, which caused him to have a pretty rough pro day. But personally, he was a guy that I still liked. Then at pick 79, they get Zachariah Branch, who is a really shifty, interesting receiver there from Georgia.
Guy.
Kendall Daniels, Antario Thompson, Harold Perkins, and Ethan Onianwa. I again think this is kind of a mid-draft, but with not having that first-round pick and then not leveraging those middle-round picks a little bit better, I still have some question marks with it. Avion Terrell, I think, is great value where they got him at 48. It makes me feel good there. Zachariah Branch is a pretty good wide receiver piece, both gadgety, return game, and comes in as like a true number 3 for them to fit alongside Drake London and Kyle Pitts. He's going to be a good piece for that offense. But beyond that, I'm not a huge fan of any of the picks until we get to 231, which is Ethan Onianwa, who is an offensive lineman that I do like, but he made his nut at Rice with the Owls, didn't, was so, and then was a backup with the Buckeyes last year. So he's still a developmental guy, but at pick 231 with his size, like that's exactly the type of guy that you want to take there. Like high upside, but if he's on another team in a year, it's not going to hurt you. So I felt good or decent about those first two picks, but everything kind of in between, so. So I think this is a mid draft.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. The Terrell pick I like, especially at 48. Zachariah Branch helps in the return game. I don't know where his role is on the offensive side of the ball, but okay. In terms of the picks later on, I think they took guys that maybe had some interesting traits that they like a Kendall Daniels, a guy that converts from safety, right, into a linebacker. Harold Perkins is a guy who could maybe be an interesting edge rusher because of some physical traits. I think that they were also kind of reaching for traits in that similar area. And Falcons fans who have ever watched this show know that I've kind of been harsh against the Falcons. I think that there is some potential, but that's all that it really is right now. And when you don't have a first round pick, it's tough to get some of that guaranteed talent. Luckily, it sounds like James Pierce Jr., is not going to federal pound me in the ass prison. So they should have him back in 12 games. And when Roger Goodell lifts that suspension or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah. I given the situation, I would see between 4 and 6 games being the likely kind of suspension with that, because there is going to be a suspension. He's not completely cleared of charges. But it's a tough one, like you said, because there's not a first round pick. You're going to get some decent players there out of the top end, and maybe you're able to develop some guys. Compared to a terrible Terry Fontenot draft, I mean, I would probably be happy here that this is not us being like, we just signed Tua, we just, we've got another quarterback with no knees, and let's take another quarterback like a Nussmeier in the second round or something like that. That would have been a Fontenot type of pick. And you didn't do that, so congratulations.
Man, I kind of got killed for my Nussmeier take, that I didn't think he was very good and that I didn't really see him as an NFL quarterback. Watching him fall where he went to kind of made me feel a little bit better about my assessment of Nussmeier. Now, granted, there's the cyst we talked about a little bit at Draft House, and we'll see how that shakes out. Cysts grow back. That's my thing. That's my worry. They refill.
They can. Look. If this was a year or two ago, the Nussmeier steam and Aller steam and stuff like that was, sky high, and it makes sense to take those guys. I think that if anyone's talking themselves into the quarterbacks in this draft of being anything beyond backups outside of Fernando Mendoza, it's you're drinking a lot of the Kool-Aid. Like Nussmeier, I think his ceiling mark is a backup quarterback, and same with Aller. Though I like Aller's physical traits better, and his year was cut short by injury. So that there's more I can get talked into there versus just assist being why the guy overthrows everything.
Yeah, I don't believe that was just assist that is the reason he overthrows everything, but it is what it is. Let's get off of Nussmeier. We haven't got anywhere near that yet. Let's get on to Carolina.
Yeah, so Carolina Panthers overall, a pretty damn good draft. I'm going to be critical of one pick, basically, and I think you can probably figure that one out. But they go with Monroe Freeling, tackle out of Georgia, which, when you're talking about a guy who, by some ranks, were getting taken as high as 6, which we felt like was an overdraft. To get him at 19 is pretty nice. It does bear some questions with that offensive line because you got Ike Ekwonu, who's going to be coming off of injury, but we've always felt that he would be better as a guard. So maybe the move into guard at some point in time is a smart play. And then so Monroe Freeling at that point where he could be one of the only true left tackles in this class, getting him there at 19 is not bad at all. You know how we feel about building up to the trenches. Then they get Lee Hunter, who I'm definitely high on. Getting him at 49 feels like fantastic value. Chris Brazzell out of Tennessee. This is the one pick that I don't like, but it's because I don't like the player. But I can't touch Tennessee volunteer wide receivers. I can't do it. He does seem like a one-trick pony. I think that he could be a Dante Thornton, which plays a role in your offense. But also, I couldn't do that personally in the third. But compared to consensus and things like that, it absolutely bears out. If he hits his potential and doesn't have off-the-field issues, which is currently a concern, it could be an absolute slam dunk pick. And then everything else from here is basically gravy. Like, they took good players. Will Lee is, a solid cornerback prospect. Sam Heck, by many reports, one of, if not the best center in the draft class. Zakee Wheatley, extremely productive safety that have gotten talked at some points is going as high as the second round, and you're getting him at pick 151. And then Jackson Kawach at 227. It's a linebacker, a developmental guy. Who cares at that point? Like, not to talk bad about Jackson Kawach, but again, this is where you're taking your guys where you're like some of the traits, set them, forget them, develop. And if something comes of it, cool. If not, it's no big deal because you're talking about pick 227. overall, this Panthers draft was pretty damn good.
Yeah, I agree, man. Monroe Freeling, when tackles started to come off, I was like, okay, here we go. And then it kind of stalled. I felt like there were guys that went higher than I expected for sure. Freeland going at 19, though, that's going to be great because if he doesn't have to start right away, if they have Iquanu back or however it's going to work, okay, fine. If not, if he does become the guy, you set him there. You already said it. Like we always thought that Iquanu should be fucking a guard anyways. He was never going to be a left tackle in the league. So that's a great get. Like you said, I like the Lee Hunter. You don't like the Brazil pick, and I understand you don't necessarily like the player. My question is the fit. What exactly, like, we're going to have Tet working out of the slot probably with Brazil working as the X.
I don't know.
He's going to beat the press consistently because Tet, I know, is a bigger guy, but he works a lot in the slot.
Yeah, I don't know. And what happened in college with Brazil almost needs to be kind of thrown out if you project him to what he could be at the top end in the NFL. I know Bill Workman, big fan of Brazil. And we had a conversation on the stream about that. I didn't like Brazil because, one, he played like exclusively on one side of the line. I can't remember if it was the left or the right, but he basically only lined up out wide on one side of the line and almost exclusively 9 routes, just deep routes. And they didn't have him do much else there at Tennessee. Bill believes his separation is a lot better. I also questioned the production because against top tier talent, he had his best games. And then against bad talent, he was nowhere to be seen. So it's like one of those weird situations of like, why are there those drop-offs where you should absolutely be lighting up the lesser teams? It just didn't make sense to me. I think that he's going to, line up at an X or a Z and Tet can kind of go wherever in that offense. But at worst, Brazil with his speed and size takes the top off a defense. It forces them to make sure they have a deep coverage for him and will hopefully open up stuff in underneath routes. If that's the case, he then becomes kind of that gimmick player, which only works as long as you get to hit him every now and then. And you have to have someone who can actually hit him deep. Bryce Young, which isn't necessarily his strong suit either. So that's what you're getting out of him at least at the low end. Maybe he's able to develop into a more full-fledged wide receiver with a varying route tree other than just 9 routes. That's part of the reason why I'm not a huge fan of the player. But again, the value of where they got him is pretty damn solid because he was getting talked up into potentially the second round because you can't deny that the RAS score, the height, weight, speed combo. He could be the next Randy Moss based off of that sort of production. We just didn't see any of that in college.
Yeah, no, I think that was the only thing that he had glimpses of Randy Moss in college was the height, weight, and speed. So,
and character concerns potentially.
All right, moving on to the Bears. Man, I felt like the Bears had a pretty solid draft that you are not going to like that they had. Because obviously, Thiemann, that is a big get for them. They needed help on the back end. Logan Jones, I love this kid, man. Give me an Iowa lineman all day, every day, anytime. Road grader type dudes. That's all they fucking do at Iowa is run the ball. The Bears are going to want to run the ball with their two-headed backfield as well. Sam Roush, guy that you loved, good inline guy, and can actually go out there and maybe catch it a little bit to help out that tight end room that's already pretty fucking stacked with a Colson Loveland. And is Cole Kmet back as well, or is he?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a incredibly talented offense that is going out there with, I think, one of the probably hardest hitting safeties. Bears are going to try to cause more turnovers, man. I really like this draft for the Bears.
I like a lot of the players in this draft. I don't completely agree with the process for the Bears. That's why I would, if I was grading this, I'd probably be more of like a B minus to a C plus, because the biggest issues with this Bears team revolved around the defense. And they grabbed Dylan Thieneman. And then it was nothing until late into day 3. So, well, not late into day 3, but just into day 3. So again, love Dylan Thieneman. I was definitely getting prospect fatigue of him being mocked to my Vikings all the time. I'm not happy about seeing him on a rival team, but it definitely fits a need. I wouldn't say that he's a hard hitter, because that was one of the comparisons that was always made with my Vikings. Oh, you'll be the next Harrison Smith. Well, just because he's white doesn't mean that he's going to bring the hammer like Harry. He's not a big hitter like that. He's just very rangy with that speed and very good in multiple different styles of defense. A little stiff in the hips, but an extremely good player and a good selection for them there at pick 1. Good value. Logan Jones, another player that I was a big fan of. They just traded for Garrett Bradbury, who is a similar archetype size. Logan Jones isn't huge, neither is Bradbury. So Logan Jones doesn't have to step in right away, but if you're taking a guy in the second round, I would kind of hope that he would. But long term, I see the vision with Logan Jones, and I like Logan Jones. Again, I like the player. I don't necessarily like the process with it. Sam Roush, love him again. But again, process-wise, you already have 2 starting tight ends. Sam Roush doesn't need to step in and start right away, which is a good thing. But with that pick number 69, Giggity, I'm hoping that the guy is able to step in sooner than later. And look, NFL runs a lot of 3 tight end sets. They're going to try to run the ball there for sure. So having 3 tight ends out there, especially a guy with Roush with his size that can block in line, does make some sense. And then Xavier Thomas, I've not been a huge fan of. I thought 89 was a bit of a reach for him. Malik Muhammad, a cornerback of 124. I do like Keyshawn Elliott, a linebacker at pick 166. I'm a fan of that value as well. And then Jordan Vanderberg for the defensive interior there at pick 213, also decently solid value. The process that I don't like was I felt like they picked 3 offensive players in the first 2 days out of their 4 picks. I would have liked to have seen at least one of those be another defensive player, specifically an edge rusher or a tackle. But so they didn't go that route. They didn't really add any sort of pass rush, which was one of the biggest issues with this team.
Yeah, so I understand the need to add pass rush. And listen, the Sharp Football Analysis says they did not do very good. At 1.32, ranked 26th in terms of value. But, I mean, I really like a lot of the players they got.
I love those.
It's really hard to say that I don't like this draft because there's a lot of these fucking dudes that I like.
That's of their first 5 picks. I like 4 of them. Like, I was big fans of 4 of them. And I think where they got them is perfectly solid value. I just think that and this is where we don't know the team's boards. Obviously, consensus is going to feel one way about it. Right. I like the players a lot. Just like the Cardinals, I knocked them because I love the player. I hated the process of where they took him. And it's even more exemplified by pick 3. The Bears, they didn't stretch on a pick 3 for a guy they absolutely didn't need. I can see pathways for all of these guys. I like a lot of these guys. I just think that they didn't focus as much as where they should have. And maybe that is a props to them as well, because if you are only picking based on your absolute needs, then you are giving up other talented players around you. And so we don't know how slanted that horizontal board is for them, where talent outweighs the picks available for them. So again, that's why I'm not super hard on this class. I still give it like a B minus or something like that, which is good because I do love the players so much. I am concerned about the process. I'm concerned that they didn't add in certain spots this off season overall that they should have.
All right. Let's move on to the next one, brother.
All righty. Next up, Dallas Cowboys. When you have a couple first round picks, as long as you don't completely whiff on them, it's probably going to be a good draft. And I don't think they whiffed on either their first 2 picks, nor do I think they whiffed on many of their picks. Overall, I kind of like the top end of this draft a lot, which is where your good meat and potatoes are. Caleb Downs, you can't fucking knock that at all. Yeah, they traded up one spot to make sure they got their guy. They didn't have to give up a ton. So Caleb Downs, slam dunk. Love that for them. Malachi Lawrence, someone who had been rising and probably isn't going to look good on consensus, but had been, definitely in that last week in a lot of talk about making his way up into the first round. Does make it up there, 23, maybe a little bit rich for your blood, but compared to some of the other defensive end prospects that were there, I like a Malachi Lawrence. And then Jayshawn Barham was a guy that I've been super high on. To get him at pick 92, that's right around where I felt like he could go. I think that he is very much so in line with an Andrew Van Ginkel from my Vikings, which is why I was so big on him. I like what he is as not a necessarily pass rushing edge, but just a good overall edge, good in the run game with a little bit of pass rush versatility.
Yeah, so they hit on a lot of shit, man, because they were able to address really all of their needs. And they were not shy about fucking going and attacking the things that they needed. We've seen Philly do this in the past when they double up or triple up on fucking corner. Well, that's what Dallas did here. Edge, edge, edge at fucking 23, at 92, and at 137. Like, they're going to make sure that the loss of Micah Parsons is fucking figured out. They're going to recreate him in the aggregate somehow. So the idea that they knew what their weaknesses were, attacked them, and were able to get great value. I mean, Caleb Downs is player 1 or player 2 in this draft, depending on
who one of those blue chips. He's one of the few blue chips.
Very few blue chips in this draft. And because of that, it saves them a ton of value. Their value in this, they ranked 13th, the first team to go negative at negative 0.06. So a lot of people like this draft. Value is great.
If out of a draft class, and in this one, they did have 7 picks, if you're able to hit, we'll say 30% of your picks out of this entire class, it's a good draft class. So they went and took 3 edge rushers. If they're able to hit on one of those 3 guys, it's good selections for the edge rush class. It was a key point of need. It's, Caleb Downs, obviously we can't say that he's going to be fantastic. He could always turn into a Lewis Cine or something like that.
Right.
But the guy looks pretty goddamn solid. So to get him, you feel like that's a set it, forget it part of your defense. And then you're probably going to get at least one of these guys out of this edge rush class that turns out at that point in time, your draft class is great. Getting a Drew Shelton at pick 112, a big, tall tackle, doesn't have to play right away. That's a developmental guy who I think could end up potentially being a starter in the future. That's good value there. Devin Moore, a lot of people were higher on him than 114. There's some traits there. You like LT Overton, like you said, with another one of those edge rushers. He's probably not bringing a whole lot as a pass rush, but it's another bullet in the chamber here.
Yeah, let's just keep adding guys to that room because we got to find somebody that can get after the fucking passer.
So overall, pretty solid draft there from the Cowboys.
I agree.
A lot of Downs jerseys going to be printed out there in Dallas.
Yeah, 100%. There's going to be a shitload of Caleb Downs jerseys. But I mean, you ready to move on to the Lions?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lions obviously came into this draft with the need at tackle. They executed. They got a tackle.
Yep.
Based on who was available, I'm okay with this, but it does absolutely force the move of Penei Sewell over to the left side. They get Blake Miller with that first pick. Blake Miller is a guy who I've said I think could be a Brian O'Neill. I think he could step in pretty early on. If you look at his career in college, every year he's consistently gotten better and really picked up steam over the last probably month to 2 months. A little bit higher than, maybe consensus on Blake Miller, but obviously fills a need and is a high upside player there. Derek Moore, an edge rusher that I really like, who I think can be a really solid complement to Aiden Hutchinson and with their second pick. And then I think the other good value that they get here is pick 157, Keith Abney. He fell a lot recently in the process. Originally was kind of looked at as a second-round pick, and I feel like he is going to be a little bit more of a slot guy. But the Lions, they tend to like their smaller corners. Seems like a lot of their corners are slot guys, and they're always fucking hurt. So if you're able to find a guy that fits in with your system, I'm not talking about the injury part of it, but he fits in with what they want to do. That's really good value to get Abney there at pick 157. Skylar Gilhard as well as at pick 205. With how late that pick was, he doesn't bring much. He's slightly undersized, really only has some pass rush to him. But at pick 205 as what would be a rotational defensive tackle, I like that value as well.
So the Blake Miller thing was weird to me because obviously he's a right tackle. And there's still like the premier left tackle on the board at this point in Monroe Freeling. He doesn't go until 2 picks later at Carolina. So why do the Lions make the decision to go with Blake Miller? Was the move of Penei Sewell like destined to happen no matter what? I'm sure Penny wants that. I mean, like more money, right?
That I think is probably part of it, is that the Lions went to Penei Sewell and said, hey, if we move you to the left, are you okay with it? He said, abso-fucking-lutely. They've already seen him play a tiny bit of left and knows that he can do that. It is a little bit scary when you have a guy that's so good at right tackle to try to move them sides, but when you're talking about the quality of player as Penei Sewell, you're probably not going to see a drop off. I don't think he's necessarily going to get better on the left side, but he's going to be just as good as he was on the right side, more than likely. And so when you go to him and say that, he's probably already been training for the left side this offseason, thinking that this is a very strong possibility. Also, left tackles just inherently make more than right tackles in the NFL. This is a path to more money for him. And so the team probably said, we could take a Monroe Freeling who might need a little bit of development time, or we can lock down the blind side of our quarterback with a Penei Sewell and take a guy who still probably needs a little bit of development in a Blake Miller on the right side, but we can work with that because we got Penei Sewell on the left. That's a little bit more important. I understand the questions that people will have of why move a Penei Sewell if you don't have to. But I think it was kind of a foregone conclusion that the team said this is a lever that we can pull in order to get good play on the left side of our line right now. And we're already leaning on that lever pretty fucking hard. So we're probably just going to lean into it.
Yeah. I mean, it says a little bit about Monroe Freeling, maybe as well. But let's stay here with the Lions. Derek Moore, listen, Hutchinson has needed a running mate, the consistent one. They get a young guy, Michigan guy. Like they'll have a lot in common.
The first time that he's had a legit defensive end on the opposite side, if Derek Moore hits what I think that he could hit.
Yeah, like they have been dying to get somebody up there. They've made trades. They've pulled guys off the fucking street to try to get somebody opposite of Hutchinson. And then obviously when he went down, they were fucking completely bereft of pass rushing talent. So Derek Moore, I love the pick. The Abney pick, yeah, 5th round. That's good value. I'm not as high. I mean, but that's good value.
That's the thing is that I believe I kind of fell with consensus as the draft process went along, where Abney again talked about a lot as being like a 2nd round pick. Getting him where you got him is still pretty fucking good value for a guy that could end up being a number 3 or upwards of a number 2 cornerback on your team if he's able to develop correctly.
All right. I got nothing else there. Let's head on to your favorite team from the NFC, the Green Bay Packers. This draft was, well, interesting. They didn't have a 1st round pick. Very rare that the Packers don't have a 1st round pick. They very rarely trade and go out and use assets.
Because our 1st round pick was Micah Parsons.
Yeah. Well, their first pick this year, we get Cisse at 52, Chris McClellan 77, Danny Dennis Sutton at 120, Yeager Burton at 153, Damani Jones at 201, and they drafted a fucking kicker in Trey Smack out of Florida. I don't hate some of this. Like the Yeager Burton pick is a good pick.
Who doesn't love Yeager Burton?
Exactly.
Great name, great value.
Danny Dennis Sutton, I'm higher on than I think a lot of other people are. I think he could fit very nicely into the scheme up there and has some shades of Micah Parsons, but like light, like very, very light. I don't know about the top 2 picks here, though. I'm interested to get your perspective. Because I know you were not a huge Cisse guy, right? If I remember correctly.
I think he's okay. but they're around the same area. There was other corners that I definitely liked better. I think Cisse is a 2 to 3 year project. So, like, I guess 52 is roughly around where he probably was supposed to go in consensus, but I could have seen him falling to the end of the second round, early third round. You're getting him with your first pick at pick 52. I wasn't a huge fan of it. Chris McClellan, also not a fan of at 77. Compared to consensus and just compared to how I felt the player, like, I did not have him in the third round. So didn't feel great about that one for them. Danny Dennis Sutton, I think, is solid value at pick 120. And Jaeger Burton, love that pick. Damani Jackson, I'm not going to be surprised if he's not in the league in a couple years. Huge reach there for him to be drafted at all, in my opinion. And then Trey Smack, you took a kicker at 216, who typically bad process to take kickers in the draft. I say that knowing that my Vikings did, and it turned out fantastic with Will Reichard. The thing is that Will Reichard was a fucking dog. And I don't, like, I've seen some Packers fan pages being like, this guy hit like 650 yarders this year. And I'm like, that's baseline NFL these days. Like, you have to be able to hit from distance. I think that Trey Smack absolutely could have been a UDFA probably. So again, process. Obviously, I'm not a Packers fan. I'm a Vikings fan. But this just seems like another Packers draft where I'm kind of like, you guys like had some opportunities to take people that I really liked. I'm not a Bears fan, but I'm a fan of the players that they took. I'm not happy about having that in my division.
Right. This
draft class doesn't make me feel any better about the Packers as far as them getting better. Like, I don't, it is like that C- type grade to D grade for me, because it's just, you took some guys. You have some
new talent on the team.
Yeah. Like, again, the best pick there to me is Jaeger Burton, because I absolutely think that he will be a starting center very quickly for them.
All right. And sliding down to our next one and the fucking shakeup of the draft, possibly. The LA Rams have one of the most wild drafts and piss off just everybody in Rams Nation, including their head coach. Ty Simpson goes at 13 after a trade. Max Clare, I'm sorry, that trade took place way earlier. Max Clare goes at 61. Keegan Trost at 93. CJ Daniels at 197. And Tim Keenan the third at 232. Ty Simpson at 13. Excuse me. Apparently we are saying fuck them picks, but in a completely different fashion now. Because this does absolutely nothing to help the team.
The good news is that Rams fans should generally be used to not being excited about their draft picks because they trade them away so much. They don't do a ton with them. Like, they've had some solid drafts in recent memory, but this was a rough one, man. It is tough to try to shine this turd too much.
I like Max Clare.
Yeah, I think that he's solid. I think we had a really interesting tight end run.
Oh my God,
Day 2 and early day 3, which I think elevated Max Clare. I think that he could be a solid tight end. He wasn't my favorite available there, but if that's their guy, cool. And they do a lot of 3 tight end heavy sets there, so it makes sense to get a guy like him. But at the end of the day, this draft wins or loses based on Ty Simpson, and we will absolutely not know for another, I'll say, 3 years where this kind of sits, because we know that they are playing Stafford this year.
Yep.
They've talked about thinking Stafford could play for another 2 years. The reports are that the team told them, hey, we're taking Simpson at 13. Are you going to be upset by this? Understand that this isn't us pushing you out. This is just hedging our bets for the future. If there's anywhere that Ty Simpson can succeed being drafted in this draft class, it is with the Rams. The expectations that he's going to have on his shoulders at pick 13 will kind of wane off a little bit, because you're not going to see him for at least a year.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that still needed a year or two more in college of development. Like, this is such an interesting pick at 13 to take a project. That's what you do in the third and later rounds. You're taking a project here. And I see some of the shades of what could bear good fruit from this project, but to take him here when you probably could have gotten him in the second round, or you could have traded into the end of the first round to keep that fifth year option, because you're going to need the fifth year option for a guy that needs this development. Like, yeah, it's with Sean McVay. He's great with quarterbacks, great at developing them. But I think that if there's any belief behind Sean, or not, did I say Sean Payton? Sean McVay. Sean McVay. If there's any belief that Sean McVay didn't like this pick, which I get it. I was tired. Maybe he was tired after night one, and that's why he had steam coming out of his ears at the press conference. But if he wasn't a fan of this, I feel like as soon as Stafford hangs him up, he's gone too.
Probably. You would imagine that this kind of creates a really big tension. The Rams want to go compete for a fucking Super Bowl right now. At 13, there were a lot of dudes that helped them try to do that in a lot of different fucking areas. You could have went anywhere, and you picked the one goddamn spot. This is the Jordan Love situation with Aaron Rodgers all over again.
Except for Jordan Love.
Same thing.
Jordan Love had at a better value in the first round, and I think that he had better college tape. And I don't like Jordan Love and didn't love him through the draft process, but like
Ty Simpson's a projection. It's nothing but projection.
And that's the thing, is that we talk about, like, do we like the values of the players? I like Claire's decent at 61, I suppose, definitely based with the tight end run. Tim Keenan at pick 232. I liked him better than pick 232. Not a ton better, but I still liked him better. I hate this class otherwise. The process seems absolutely, completely opposite of what they are attempting to do this year. We've talked about with our teams before, what would you do for a Super Bowl? Would you take like 2 decades of being bad? I know that's kind of in the Browns' MO for a while, but like, would you take 2 decades of being irrelevant to get one Super Bowl? Yeah.
100%.
The Rams are in a position this year to blow their whole wad for a Super Bowl. That's every move that they've been making has been that. And now to flip the switch and say, yeah, but now we're going to look a little bit towards the future, which, yes, the draft should definitely be a projection towards the future, but taking a Mekhi Lemon, a little citrus at pick 13 makes a hell of a lot more sense for now and the future than a Ty Simpson. It just makes no sense to me, man.
Little Citrus, banger nickname, by the way. It was a terrible, terrible decision. But my man, we ready to move on? And you go ahead and tee this one up, because you're going to be talking for a minute, I assume.
Yeah. So overall, Minnesota Vikings draft class. I get why it gets bad grades. I felt a little shaky about it at first. It makes a lot more sense to me now, especially from the viewpoint of a Vikings fan, the Vikings team, their current awkward non-GM position setup. The make or break for this completely is Caleb Banks.
Mm-hmm.
Does he develop or not? Because if he does, you got to steal. If he didn't have the injury concerns, I think that he's a top 10 player in this class. If he had a little bit better production in college, which was partially not seen because of the injury concerns, he could be a top 5 player in this class. Without the injury concerns, I think that he's the best defensive tackle in this class. We got him at 18, which did, especially compared to consensus, and with those injury concerns, it felt like a reach, and I get that. But this is a guy that through the process, especially earlier on, remember talking to you guys when you were doing mock drafts down there at the Combine, I was like, I kind of want Caleb Banks, because that's the type of dangerous dude that in a Brian Flores system, you could do innumerable things with. It was our biggest need. We let go 2 of our starting defensive tackles. So we had a huge need there. And there was apparently a concern that Harbaugh was going to take him several picks later at pick 22. Like, he was high on a Caleb Banks, tried to recruit him to Michigan. And they have a needed defensive tackle as well. The only reason why I think the Vikings make this pick is if they're comfortable with the medicals. And according to the team, the joke that's going around is that They came out and said we have the best doctors in the world. In the world in Minnesota, I don't know, but like they've probably got good fucking doctors. If they're willing to take him at pick 18, I think the doctors probably signed off on it. It is a bone break. Bones heal better than anything else in the body, so theoretically should be stronger. If that pick hits, banger draft. If it doesn't, then I understand a lower grade towards like a C. That being said, Jake Golday, I absolutely love. I think that he is a perfect scheme fit for Brian Flores. I think that while he projects right now as a inside the box linebacker, he looks like he's got the traits of being a Van Ginkel clone. Van Ginkel's getting up there in age. He only played about 50% of the snaps last year due to injury, and has 1 year left on his contract with the Vikings. So Jake Golday absolutely could be a Van Ginkel replacement, and I think that he's a multi-tool, played defensive end, but has safety style RAS and size that you want from that outside linebacker. So I love that pick. Then we get the big citrus, which Vikings haven't had nose tackles. Brian Flores hasn't been a nose tackle guy, but they're obviously trying something different here. Big citrus, you're not going to get pass rush from, but this allows you to play a Caleb Banks and a Jalen Redmond at more of your 5 or your 4 eyes, and big citrus to clog up that middle. The run defense was the weakest part of our defense last year. He immediately provides a benefit to that. So it all starts to kind of fit together what they're trying to do along that defensive line. Again, foundational is a good thing for a team to focus on. And that's a lot of what this draft was meat and potatoes. You get Caleb Tiernan at pick 97. Most people say that he was like the last of a tier of tackles that you feel good about. If you had to start them this year, you could probably get by with it. Caleb Tiernan, the biggest knock on him, shorter arms. But when you're getting a guy
fucking class,
but they're still not egregiously short. It's 32 and 3/8, I believe, was the length that he had. 33 and a half is typically what you're looking for the prototypical arm length. When you're getting a guy at pick 97, a comp pick in the 3rd round, I'm absolutely okay with that because he's either a Brian O'Neill replacement or he has some guard flexibility potentially to replace a Will Fries in a year. So really good value there. Jacoby Thomas, this is where I felt like we had a bit of a reach, but if you were looking for a Harrison Smith style replacement, the one thing that Jacoby Thomas does is try to end people's lives. He is a fucking big hitter. He does not have fluid hips. He's so in coverage if anything gets behind him. But this guy likes to bring the fucking lumber, and I like one of the quotes that he had after the draft. He said, every day that I go out there, when a guy tries to get more yards on me, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he tries to score on me, he's taking food off my mom's plate because I'm not getting the money that I should be earning for playing this game. He's taking food from my mom, and that's how I view it every time I'm out there. And so I'm going to go out there and try to just kill motherfuckers, and I love that. Max Bredesen, probably our biggest reach in this class.
Yeah, by a long shot. You drafted a fucking fullback at 159,
and I love it. This is a guy that typically mock drafts you're seeing in like the 7th round, right?
Yeah.
And so yes, I agree. I hate where we took him, but it makes all the sense to me.
Fine, good player. You need a CJ Ham replacement. Makes a lot of sense. This guy perfectly fits. He's right there from Michigan. I get it. But at 159, that was just, I was like, what the fuck is
if we start to shuffle some of the players in this, and this goes into like your sunk cost fallacy thing, if we shuffle some of the player positions in here, I'm much happier with the draft. But again, I have to be true to what I said earlier. The process, I'm not completely convinced with the process of where we took the players, but Bredesen makes so much fucking sense for this team. He was the best run blocking tight end / H-back / fullback in this entire class as far as PFF grades go. We lost CJ Ham. We need a replacement for that. The team is moving to a wide zone scheme. They brought in Frank Smith from Miami as the assistant head coach and to basically build our run game a la what they've done in San Francisco and what they did in Miami. Miami was a absolute god-awful dog shit team. The one thing they could do is run the ball.
Yes, they could.
And part of that is Devin Ashane, but you need blocking and you need scheme in front of that. That's what Frank Smith is bringing. He heavily used Alex Ingle. They heavily use a Kyle Juszczyk up in San Francisco, which is where all this stems from. Bredesen fits in perfect as that lead blocker role. I believe last year on all but like 2 of their rushing touchdowns in Michigan, he was out there being the lead blocker on those plays. So there's some correlation with that I like. Also, him and JJ McCarthy are great buddies. JJ McCarthy was at his draft party in the interview afterwards and said he's, quote, a foxhole guy, which means for non-military folk, the guy that you would want with you in your foxhole when you're fighting the Viet Cong or whatever the fuck it is. It makes a lot of sense as to what this team is trying to do. Yep. Charles Deming, I had higher than 163. Smaller school guy, HBCU, but super good Raz. Looked fantastic at the scouting combine with his numbers. High upside. He just has to take a bit of a leap from being an HBCU to a bigger program. But at 163, I love the value there for him. I would have been comfortable with him at pick 98, 97 range. That's kind of where I had Charles Deming as one of my kind of sleepers in the cornerback class. And then Damon Claiborne, your discount version of Devon Achane. Again, Frank Smith bringing that up. He doesn't have great contact balance, but the guy's a good receiver. He's fast as shit, and he's very shifty. You get a hand on him, he's probably going down. But when I watched this film, I saw shades of Devon Achane there. He had a bit of a fumble issue this last year with 5 fumbles. That absolutely has to get cleaned up, but you're talking about a guy at pick 198. I think that he could be a steal at that point, and it's a type of running back that we don't have in our room. They're trying to build explosives. He's good with an outside zone. That is the type of running game that they're trying to build, is an outside zone scheme. He also has some return capability. And then Gavin Gerhardt. No one knew who the fuck this guy was. He wasn't in most like boards.
Gerhardt's brother?
No, not at all. Not at all. But Jason Kelce mentored him. Like, there's many videos of them hanging out there at Cincinnati together, and he played a lot. Gavin Gerhardt, a lot of experience. I think that he is a mid floor. I'm not going to say a high floor because obviously he's a 7th round pick that no one really fucking knew about. But the experience, he overall graded out pretty average there with Cincinnati playing center, and he ends up being a potential center option or developmental guy there in the 7th round. So again, pick 235, I would have taken a guy that I knew, but at that point in time, I remember looking at it in the draft, I was like, there's no centers left that I like in this class. That kind of fucking sucks that we missed out on him. So that is what it is with that one. But I think that this was Brian Flores said, I'm coming back to the team, but I need to refresh this defense. So if I'm coming back to this team, I get a lot of picks. And so they took Kevin O'Connell and they locked him in a room. And Kevin O'Connell stuck his head out and he was screaming. He's like, draft me a wide receiver. Draft me a fucking wide receiver. And they're like, he said tackle. And so they got him an offensive tackle. And then finally, out of the cave came Kevin O'Connell on day 3, and they were able to get a Damon Claiborne. But this was a Brian Flores draft. This was a meat and potatoes draft. And this was also, we have to factor in the trade of Jonathan Grenard to the Eagles. This was a setup for the future for whoever that next GM is. Rob Brzezinski knows that he could be it, but he doesn't know for sure. We've cleared up a shitload of cap room this year, which is why we have Juwan Jennings in-house right now up in Minnesota interviewing for our wide receiver 3 slot. And yeah, he's a wide receiver 2, which I'm super stoked about. We need another edge rusher to kind of replace Jonathan Grenard, who, again, I'm a big fan of Jonathan Grenard. I'm very sad to see him go. I'm not super happy with the pick compensation that we got back for it, which was pick 97 or 98 this year and a 3rd round next year. I'm more happy about that 3rd round next year, but I felt like he had a 2nd round value to him. But he has not played a single season entirely all the way through. He does have injury issues. His best year was 2 years ago with the Vikings, where he can be definitely that 2nd tier of edge rusher. He's also about to hit 29 years old, and he got a huge hunk of money. So this is a setup for the future. It allows Dallas Turner to see the field more, and gives more money to us going forward in the future. I am sad to see the Grenard go, but this is Rob Brzezinski saying meat and potatoes draft. We're getting a lot of linemen. We're getting 2 big-time defensive linemen. We're getting a linebacker, your meat and potatoes. We're getting an offensive lineman, meat and potatoes. We're getting a fullback, meat and fucking potatoes. So that way we can develop a run game. We can get some floor and consistency foundation for that defense. And then the next GM, when they come in next year, there's probably some obvious needs. Another edge rusher, maybe a quarterback, depending on how things go. And oh, by the way, you're going to have a healthy amount of cap space to accomplish some of these needs before we get to the draft. So I like the idea behind this. I do think that overall the team got, if Caleb Banks and Dominique Orange do kind of solidify the defensive line, I think that we got better on defense, and the defense was already very good. And if you start to see decent quarterback play and the run game develops with what their vision is for it, like this could be a very solid draft. But it really all hinges on Caleb Banks. Can he stay healthy? How soon will he be back out there? Were the medical checkouts really good? This is your boom or bust type pick for the Vikings in the first round.
100%. When Caleb Banks went off, I was like, okay. So really talented player. Seems really high, though, considering the injury concerns. If the medicals check out, he's great. How long are the medicals going to check out for? When you got a dude that big and he has foot injuries, they typically reoccur, and it is very worrisome with a guy that big having foot injuries. So
he actually said in his interview he plans on cutting down from like the 326, 330 that he's at to about 310.
It's a good idea.
He expects his role to be a little bit more of that 4i5 tech role, which
will help him keep some of that goddamn weight off of his feet. I like the Dominique Orange pick. I'm not as high on the Galladay pick, but listen, you guys needed a linebacker. You guys need you just moved Grenard. You need to continue to stack that defense. The Bredesen thing was fucking wild to me. I was like, oh, okay, we're drafting fullbacks. Like this draft has been drunk since pick 3, and it didn't stop drinking for 3 fucking days.
Yep. That's the thing is, everyone knows I'm a big Nowakowski fan, and Nowakowski went right around the same area. Nowakowski has a little bit of receiving upside. Bredesen, I think, touched the ball 3 times last year. He's out there just to, again, kind of murder people in the blocking game as much as possible. But like if that's what we're going for, that wide zone look with that sort of a lead blocker, I get it. Like he's probably going to be a pivotal special teamers, and he's probably going to be out there for at least 33% of the snaps on offense as a blocker. Also, we don't have any good pass blocking running backs, including Damon Claiborne now, and we didn't last year. CJ Ham was the guy out there on passing downs as the pass blocking back. Bredesen's going to fit into that role again.
All right. Listen, I get it, but it's just the fucking 5th round pick for a full.
I don't get me wrong. Value is fucking wild there.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's slide down to looks like New Orleans, who had a pretty nice little draft, I believe, is what we have next, right?
Yeah. It looks like New Orleans is up here next. They go with Jordan Tyson at pick 8, another kind of boomer bust guy based on the medicals. Yep. But one that I was more leaning towards boom. I see Justin Jefferson in him. When you get a chance to get a guy like that, and wide receiver is technically a need on this team, makes a lot of sense. Christian Miller, I think, is a super solid defensive tackle. Pick 42 for him there. Oscar Delp, if the injuries and stuff were really what was holding him back, at pick 73, there's high upside there with him as a tight end. And then I'm not a huge Jeremiah Wright fan. Bryce Lance, I think, could be Christian Watson 2.0, potentially without the injuries. Definitely the better Lance brother. Pick 136 is pretty solid value there. And then we kind of, the rest of their draft are guys that I'm not as big of a fan of or felt like were reaches. Look, Lorenzo Styles can run really fast.
Real fast.
His brother's good. But this was a guy that was near undraftable as far as grading for me. And so getting him at 172, definitely a big reach there. Barry and Brown and TJ Hall are both guys that I'm just kind of on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So for me, like I like the top end of this draft. Those first 3 picks seem like they could all be pretty solid options. It is going to hinge on the injury stuff. Again, that is Delp and Tyson. If those guys are healthy and start to be really productive, this looks like a slam dunk just based off the first 3 picks. If one of the 2 of them has injury concerns, specifically Delp, this still seems a pretty solid draft. If Tyson has injury concerns going forward, or the injury issues keep coming up and Delp develops, I'm still going to feel like C+ on this draft because you whiffed on a Tyson. But I personally think Tyson could be extremely good.
Yeah, I mean, he's got all the talent. He's just got to stay healthy. Delp, I thought that was a little bit of an overdraft, but there was tight ends were going way earlier than everybody expected. The tight end board changed drastically on, was it the beginning of night 2 or was it midnight 2 or whatever the fuck it was?
Mm-hmm.
Things started going goddamn banana balls. But listen, they did a good job by trying to support their young quarterback. You get a Tyson, you get a Bryce Lance, you get a Barry Brown. Like, those are 3 bullets now that you got to help try to get another solid pass catcher out there for Shuck to make sure that, you know what, he can hopefully develop and has some different types of weapons out there. I like this draft for the Saints. I don't know that I don't necessarily love it, but it meets a lot of their needs. And I like the player.
Yeah. So next up, New York Giants. This draft class is all about day 1 and 2.
The fucking dichotomy of day 1 and day 2 is wild, honestly.
They Arvell Reese at pick 5. They got a really good player.
100%.
Not necessarily a position of need unless you really just want to play Arvell as a stand-up guy, though. The fact that he's got positional flexibility is nice, where you can get him off the edge or have him be a stand-up backer. I think that he will be better as a stand-up backer personally, and I know I'm in the minority of that. But you brings into questions of, like, you got 4 fucking guys there now, which
got to move
wealth of riches. They're like, you could run with that, but also you're probably going to find a way to trade Kayvon Thibodeau. You're not trading Brian Burns and absolutely not Abdul Carter, but that's an expectation. I'll feel even better about this draft if they do move on from Thibodeau and get some solid value, because it's going to be 2027 value for Thibodeau. Mm-hmm. And I think that with what Bernard just got traded for, you can probably, because Thibodeau's a little bit younger, less productive, you're talking about potentially a 3rd round pick for Thibodeau straight up. But Arvell Reese, obviously one of the better players in this class. I'm lower on him than consensus. I'm lower on him than pretty much everybody. I'm not like super low on him by any means, but I wasn't as much as high on like him being possibly the 2nd overall pick as some other people. But still, solid player there. Francis Mauigoa, ton of sense. Makes a ton of 100%. Sense. Great player there to get at pick 10. Colton Hood at pick 37. He's kind of in the same conversation as a Brandon Cisse for me, where you're taking him at 37. You probably want him to start right away. I still think that he's at least a year out from being a solid player, but we'll see. And then Malachi Fields, I wasn't as high on him as some other people. But there's some shades of a good player in there. A little bit of a reach for me personally. And then everything after that, I could really kind of care less about because I don't know any of these guys.
Yeah, so I liked what they did on night 1 a lot. Getting Arvell Reese at 5 is great. Mauigoa at 10, great. 2 really fucking good players. 2 guys that were actual 1st-round picks in this class. You got 2 1st-round picks. Everything after that, I don't care about or I hate. Colton Hood in the 2nd round at 37 is way too high for me. That was insane. I watched him at the Senior Bowl. He was lost several times. I also watched Malachi Fields at the Senior Bowl. Made one great play from on a diving catch from my new quarterback, Taylor Green. But I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the player. And then you get him at 74. The value is not good at all for either one of these guys. And I don't necessarily like the player. So love what they did night 1. Everything after that is awful. So I'd give this like a C.
I'm okay with the general value through pick 74. I think that they didn't do anything stupid at pick 5 or 10. 5 is questionable if you don't move on from Thibodeau, but I absolutely think that's going to happen. And one way or the other, it's going to happen because Thibodeau is not going to be. If he plays with this team this year, he'll be gone next year. So you are definitely building towards the future there with just like an insane array of pass rush talent at edge. I'm not as down on Hood as you are, but also I'm not high on him by any means. There was other cornerbacks that I liked better at that point. Obviously, he was their flavor for whatever reason there. My question to you is, obviously, Jeremiah McCoy fell hard in this class, probably due to the medicals. But without us knowing those medicals, if they took Jeremiah McCoy, Colton Hood's running mate there at pick 37, how much better would you feel about this class?
I'd feel way better about it because
you potentially got 3 first-round picks
100%.
for your first 3 picks at that point. So it's wild how dramatic of a change it could be just with one player swap on how you end up feeling about the class overall.
Well, because Jeremiah McCoy is a top talent in this draft, he just has the injury bug. Will the knee ever get good? We don't know. But you when you see the player that he was, you're like, oh my God, if he's healthy, that guy's incredible. Whereas if you look at some of the stuff, you're projecting a lot with Colton Hood as well as a redshirt sophomore. Like there's a lot of projection no matter what, which corner you take there. And there were other guys that you could have taken there as well that have the same or similar question marks as a Colton Hood. So if you go with a McCoy, he's not going to play this year, but when he does get healthy, if he does get healthy, you get a first round talent at 37 instead of having to take him where if that doesn't come out right after the pro day, he was looking at getting drafted in fucking mid first round until the knee plug thing came out.
Yeah. Which it obviously has to have some backing to it with how far he ended up falling. So we'll see. All right. Next up here, Philadelphia Eagles. I hate it because it's so fucking good.
Okay. I was like, why? I want to know why, because this isn't fucking credible.
Especially when you pack on the fact that you did get an immediate player in Jonathan Grenard out of this. Mekhi Lemon is fantastic. It's obviously going to move on from A.J. Brown. They are not the same type of receiver, but Mekhi Lemon is dangerous as shit. And when you want a guy that can separate and get the ball in relatively short range from a quarterback that has maybe some question marks, yeah, he's been in the Super Bowl and all that with Jalen Hurts, but like they work together. That tandem can work. Mekhi Lemon and honestly, sitting out there at the draft and watching Mekhi Lemon get taken and the Steelers fans just all lost it. That was golden. Not because I dislike the Steelers fans. I know you love to hear that, but like the reaction from that fan base was crazy because it was just rumblings all around. Oh,
they were on the phone.
Oh, Lemon's there. We're going to get Lemon. Oh, fuck yeah, that's the guy we wanted. And then all of a sudden, Philadelphia Eagles traded up and taking Mekhi Lemon. And then it was, it was
the fun. Fucking Steelers were on the phone with Mekhi Lemon when they're like, oh, hey, you're not going to fucking Pittsburgh. You're going to fucking Philly.
Why do I keep getting phone calls from Philly? Next they go with Eli Stowers, a crazy gadgety type of tight end there. Isaiah likely replacement immediately as a receiving option. Doesn't bring a whole lot in the pass game, but not Isaiah likely. Who am I thinking of? Dallas Goedert in the future, but
yeah,
that's right. Calcaterra is their second one. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. You're good. Go ahead.
Either way, they get a super solid receiving option there at tight end. Then they get Cole Payton at pick 178 here, who I think is a decent developmental kind of backup quarterback, but he's sandwiched in by 2 big motherfuckers in Markel Bell and Micah Morris. Micah Morris at pick 207, you were getting him in mock drafts closer to 230, something like that. I thought that was criminal. I like Micah Morris a lot. I had him closer to like a 150 grade. Markel Bell, that's a bit of a reach to take him at pick 68, but also a guy that I still really like that right around pick 100. So draft value-wise, Micah Morris is a steal. Markel Bell is a reach. I think both of them on this Philly line could be fucking outstanding. They fit with what they want to do there in Philly, even though Jeff Stoutland's no longer there as the O-line coach. It fits in with the exact brand of what they try to do there. Cole Wisniewski, big fan of him.
Man, I fucking love Wisniewski.
I keep seeing 244.
Yeah.
That's a big fucking steal because I think that he can absolutely play and start in this league. In worst case, you are getting a blue collar special teamer.
100%. And listen, I know everybody says that he's good near the box. Like, you can play this dude in the back end. He can play deep safety, and he's going to be just fine. And he's fucking huge. I love Cole. Like, he's a dude that I thought was criminally under fucking rated.
Yeah, and being at pick 244 blows my mind. Then you get the freak, the Nigerian freak, Yoar Bernard, who is the Myles Garrett of people who don't play football. Because he
have you seen that basketball workout thing that he did?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, he's just bouncing like
and
nothing.
While his measurables and stuff are insane, it also looks like he doesn't know how to even run in his body. Like his feet don't look like they match his body. Like you can only complain so much at 251 because it's pick 251, but also this guy is like so far away from being a football player. But I mean, who knows? Maybe you're able to develop this guy because he does have extreme unique ability and physicality.
Well, listen, and the Eagles have some familiarity with this. Like Jordan Mailata was one of those international type players, and now Yoar Bernard is that guy. I mean, I assume they'll understand the way this is going to work, have some patience. If you get this guy to understand how to play football, Jesus Christ, he's insane. He is a video game character build. That's how he is built.
It's just his awareness stat is probably like a 12.
Zero. Fucking zero right now.
Yeah. So like 95% sure he's probably not going to make it in the NFL. Just going to be honest about it. No, not trying to knock on Yoar Bernard, but that's just, we're not only talking about like having to learn the game of football, but then having to learn technique in the NFL instead of at, I don't know, junior high. Like, it's going to be a long fucking road with him. So it's an uphill battle, but if there's one guy that can fucking run uphill really fast for his size, weight, and speed, like he's going to do it. So interesting pick there. And then Keyshawn James newbie. Don't really care. It's whatever at pick 252. But look, I cannot complain about their first 6 picks all the way to pick 244. I think that they are all guys that are going to see the field and be solid for this team.
Yeah, I agree, man. Fucking Howie Roseman killing it, man. Killing it again.
And again, you fit right in there with the 3rd round pick. They got Jonathan Grenard in the 3rd round.
Yeah. That defense is going to be insane.
Yeah.
All right. Sliding down to the next one. San Francisco 49ers. Had one of the more interesting drafts. They were rated as the worst team in terms of the sharp football analysis. Draft capital over expected at a 3.14. For those keeping score at home, lower numbers are better.
Into the negative numbers. Negative numbers are better.
Negative numbers are the best. Like, the best team was negative 1.71. So this was doubly, like, bad on the opposite end. DeShon Stribling going at 33. Like, I listened to McShay, I think it was today, talking about everybody knew DeShon Stribling. People should have known Stribling was going to go higher. Okay, sure. Maybe there was talk that he was going to go higher. I don't think the talk was he was going to go at 33, and I damn sure don't think the talk should have been that he was going to go that high. There are plenty of receivers that he's not a bad player.
Yeah.
But at 33, the first player of fucking round 2, this is a massive reach. Because I don't listen. Thank you. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing on DeShon Stribling.
I like DeShon Stribling. I do.
But 33 was fucking insane.
Yeah. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. A little bit of an older prospect as well. I think he's like 24, 25. I like DeShon Stribling. The rumors have been like, this guy could sneak into the 2nd round. Well, he didn't sneak in. He started off the 2nd fucking round. I thought he was like a beginning of 3rd round style player who would develop into a good number 3 with upside of potentially being a number 2 style receiver. This is a very high pick for DeShon Stribling. I wish him the best because I do really like the player, but a hell of a reach. Romello Height at pick 70. I'm okay with him. He's more of a pass rusher, and pick 70 isn't terrible.
Yeah.
Kalen Black.
Why?
Big reach.
Yeah, I don't. There's another one. It's like, okay, I understand that we're the 49ers. You guys like to run the ball. Kalen Black is a draftable running back in the 6th and 7th round. Third round just definitely was not the right spot for it. Pick 90 is also crazy work there.
Yeah. Grayson Halton, I think that was solid pick value for him there at pick 107. Carver Willis, who Ephesians Prysock, I'm okay with him. He's big cornerback, developmental guy, pick 139, not terrible.
Very much like a Richard Sherman, Ephesians Prysock.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And great name.
Yeah.
Jaden Duger, who, and Enrique Cruz Jr., that's a made-up name.
Yep.
And sorry to you guys for Jaden Duger and Enrique Cruz and Carver Willis for knocking on you. But honestly, there's a reason why a reporter in the pool asked John Lynch,
so bad at this.
like, why are you so bad at this? Like, there's a reason why there's jokes around that they're using AI. It makes all the sense to me that Kwesi Odofa-Mensah went back to work for the 49ers. I don't get this class. Sure, there's some players I like in it. And that's the thing is, again, if we look at the sunk cost fallacy part of it, and we don't look at where these players were taken, I like the John Stribling, Romello Height, Grayson Halton, and Ephesian Prysock. They walked out with 4 players in this class that I'm like, okay, out of the 8 that you took, I like 50% of them. I can get behind that. I cannot get behind the process of where they were taken. I cannot get behind where a lot of these guys were taken with who else was on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a wild one for San Fran. And if you look at how San Fran has drafted over the last 4 years, they are like neck and neck with how bad the Vikings have drafted. Except for the Vikings this year, again, went very meat and potatoes. And I think it's going to be a solid class. This one, I just can't completely get behind because DeJon Stribling is going to see some starter time, but I don't know that he's going to be your top 1 or 2 receiver. Grayson Halton is going to see some starting time, but not as a true starter, even more of a rotational piece. Romello Height maybe might be able to work into a starting role, but probably rotational. Ephesians Prysock, probably rotational. Did you get any real starters in this class with 8 picks and 3 of them in the first 2 days? Probably not.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Like I do not like the class. I don't want to continue to beat down this class. Obviously, they can prove everybody wrong and they can ball. We never know. Nobody knows shit until they actually play. But this one, for what it's worth, was rated the worst by, I think, basically everybody who has looked at drafts.
Yeah. All righty. Next up, Seattle Seahawks, a class that is
the opposite of bad.
Well, that's the thing is a lot of people don't like this class.
Why? I really like this class. Okay, so listen, the Jadarian Price at 32, I don't love that, but I love Bud Clark. I like Bo Stevens. I like Andre Fuller. I like a Devin Eastern. Like, those are all guys that I feel like can contribute.
The guys that I don't like in this class is just Emmanuel Henderson, and it's because I don't know him. I like everyone else in this class, and I like roughly where they were all taken. I'm a big Julian Neal fan. I think he's going to be a safety over a corner, but I like Julian Neal. I like Bud Clark, so you can say, oh, we doubled up on safety there, but also they run a multiple defense, so Julian Clark can come down and play a little bit of that slot corner role. So I'm cool with that. Also gives them time to develop. Jadarian Price is the one that everyone kind of sticks on, and I know that everyone at Draft House wasn't a big fan of it. I'm okay with it because I am so much higher on Jadarian Price than most people. And it makes all the sense because I think Jadarian Price can be a true blue 3-down back. I think that he can be one of the top 15 backs in this league if he hits his high potential. I think the world of Jadarian Price, and I think that he's going to have a better year in fantasy this year than his running mate from college, Jeremiyah Love. I think Jadarian Price could be great. and you don't have Zach Charbonnet for a while, and Zach Charbonnet isn't supposed to be the lead back there, even though Seattle likes to fucking do that with their backups and play them like they're lead backs. I think Jadarian Price is fantastic. It is definitely a little bit of a reach here at 32, but they probably knew we are not going to get him if we wait. Mm-hmm. If there was not a trade down opportunity, which I believe that there was trade down opportunities, which is kind of the questionable part of this. But if there's not a trade down opportunity to make it feel a little bit better about getting Jadarian Price early in the second round, you know he's not falling to their next pick. You know he's not going to be there at 64. So you're going to have to trade up and give up capital to go get him. And then after that in this class, it's a lot of question marks. I know people are big fans of Mike Washington Jr. and stuff like that.
Jonah Campbell.
I like him.
Jonah Campbell was a possibility as well.
I love Jonah Campbell.
Great fit up there from fucking Washington.
Low moving cost. But that's why I can't knock this pick too hard, because I am a big Jadarian Price fan. And if you are going in here saying we need this, we want this, he could be a good player. And if we wait, we will not get him. And their value between the next guys below him in Jonah Coleman and Mike Washington could be a lot further down. That's why I can get behind it. I still think it was probably way too high for him. And I say way too high, I'm talking like 10 picks too high probably. But I feel like they were probably stuck in a bit of a corner there where they felt like they had to. But yeah, love Bud Clark. Love Julian Neal. Love Bo Stevens and that value at 148, which he's a sleeper for me as far as the 148. I had him a decent amount higher. Andre Fuller at 236, I think is a very good developmental corner. I liked him too as a late sleeper. And Devin Eastern, they've had success with other kind of bigger, well, smaller for defensive line, but bigger for an edge rush type of guy. He's a lot more of like a 5-tech to me. I think that he's a decent replacement there. And at 242, I feel good about that. Like I do truly enjoy this class. Your biggest question is the Jadarian Price pick to me. And I still can find a way to wrap my head around it.
Yeah. So listen, 32 is a little too high. I like other running backs more than I like Jadarian Price, but they needed a running back. And listen, I liked basically everything else they did. And it's not that I dislike Jadarian Price. I just don't like the value. So I really like their class.
This is the other thing too. And I know I've said this a whole bunch. We had 15 first round picks in this class.
Right.
So if you kind of start to weight it differently, pick 32 in other classes is more like pick 45 to 50, which is right in Jadarian Price's range. So
okay, that's
how I can kind of start to wrap my head around it.
That makes sense. I got you. All right, man. We ready to move on to the Bucs?
Yep. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got a Dawg and Ruben Bain Jr. there at pick 15. I don't necessarily know that I agree with the scheme fit for him, but they needed edge rush talent really bad. I think Bain falling here was about his floor of where he was going to fall. And I really liked his walkout. He was like the one guy who came out on stage that looked like he was about fucking business at that point. So you know that he's going to be playing hard for that team. And again, low moving cost. Josiah Trotter, a little bit higher for me, but a guy that I still like. Solid pick there, and they need some linebacker help. And they get Ted Hurst. Dog. At pick 84, I feel like that's pretty solid value for a Ted Hurst there.
100%. And there's your Mike Evans replacement.
Keontae Scott, a little bit older. I think profile's better as a safety, but still a solid pick there at 116. DeMont Capehart, all the potential in the world, never really came through in college and lived up to it. But you're talking about a guy at pick 155. I'm cool with that. Billy Strouth, another one of the Notre Dame offensive linemen who I felt like should be up a little bit higher on the board. Fan of that pick. And then Bauer Sharp, don't know him. Pick 185 feels high to me. That is what it is. Overall, I think this is like a B plus to A minus if Ruben Bain's arms are not a factor.
I'd go a B. Maybe a B plus, because I love the Ted Hurst pick at fucking 84. There was starting to be conversations that Ted Hurst was going to go into the second round as well. Josiah Trotter, I'm kind of on. Listen, I think Ruben Bain is a really good football player. There are size concerns as it relates to the arms. It's not a bad draft. the Ted Hurst thing really gets me. And then Keontae Scott, listen, if this turns out that they get two really solid starters in Ruben Bain and Ted Hurst, I think this is an absolute win. When you look at what they had 7 picks, they had normal 7 picks, not their own 7, but if you can get a couple of guys that start, that's pretty solid. If you can hit on maybe 1 or 2 more that are contributors, you're looking great. I know you're higher on Josiah Trotter, but
I still think there was a reach for him there. I like Josiah Trotter. Felt it was a little high for him, but I think that he can be a role player, a solid starting backer.
Just get Ted Hurst going. That's what you need.
Yeah. Ted Hurst makes all the sense, man. Mike Evans replacement.
Mike Evans replacement, man.
That's a good young room there. Jalen McMillan and Mecca Egbuka and Ted Hurst.
Yeah. And then, you still have Jesus Christ, I just forgot his name. The guy who broke his fucking leg.
Oh, Godwin.
Thank you. Is Chris Godwin still there? Yeah.
Yep.
So you got a mentor there still as well. So.
And I look, I've said this before. You can mark it on tape now. I think that they need to go out there and sign a Herald fan.
You mean they ain't
not Njoku. Njoku. Other Browns tight end. They need to sign an Njoku. Like K-Dot and Njoku plus that receiving core that fits solid. That to me. Like, I don't know why he's not talked about there.
I don't know either. But all right, brother, you ready to finish this last one out? We got the Commanders, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, Washington Commanders, who on that draft steals and reaches chart did the best compared to the consensus board, a minus 1.7 DCOE. That is draft capital over expected. They get themselves a Sonny Styles at pick 7, and then they have a deep drop off until they get Antonio Williams at pick 71. Who's a receiver that I think is a number 3 receiver in this draft. You're getting him in the 3rd round. I like Antonio Williams. He doesn't excite me a ton, but I think he's a solid receiver. Joshua Josephs at 147 is pretty damn good value for an edge rush there. Katron Allen, Matt Golban, and Ethan Kaliak-Manis out here. Kaliak-Manis is definitely a backup fodder. I think he's more of a guy in the room. I'm okay with that. Matt Golban was like my floor of draftable centers that I feel okay with. I think that he didn't get talked about enough. Pick 209 is right around where I think that it's great value for him, though, because it's not a guy that you're going to start right away. Maybe 3 years down the line, you could see him getting in some reps or something like that. Katron Allen, they need extra people in that running back room. I'm not super excited by Katron, but okay. At pick 187, okay. And then, like I said, Joshua Josephs, I think was like that's pretty solid value for him as pretty much a dedicated pass rusher at pick 147. Overall, not a super exciting draft for the Commanders. And that's why I still give this draft personally like a B. Yeah. Because Sonny Styles is a good pick. Did they get great value? Yes. According to the consensus board in that DCOE. Do I think it was a fantastic draft? They got Sonny Styles, which is a good pick there. And then they didn't had a steep drop off until pick 71. So I think that they got some decent pieces there. Nothing super special though.
Yeah, so I like the Sonny Styles pick. It's a great pick. The Antonio Williams pick I don't love. I thought they could have gone other areas there.
Ted Hurst was available.
I mean, yeah, there's a ton of different areas I could have gone at receiver.
Because on Stribling should have been available there.
Like that, yeah. So I don't love the Antonio Williams pick. The Katron Allen pick I don't hate. I thought running back might have been something that they would have tried to address a little earlier. I know that it's not one of their top needs, but that running back room, there's depth, but is there anybody that's exciting? Not really. That's
the thing is their running back room, they have dudes there that can play. None of them are starters, in my opinion.
Right.
That is, and adding Katron Allen to that, it just is more of like we have a super, super pure rotational room here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the way it felt like. I felt like in place of where Antonio Williams goes, you can maybe go after a running back. And Jonah Coleman's still on the board here, right?
I don't remember
around back there.
I didn't know he was in here.
Yeah. But I believe Jonah Coleman was still on the board at 71, so you can go running back there. Ted Hurst, I didn't love it. Sonny Styles is great. According to the consensus, big board, great value, right? And that's kind of where things become skewed between, do you love a draft? Well, they got good value. Yeah, but were the players really good? Are they great scheme fits? Did they help fix holes? You never know. There's a difference between drafting BPA and drafting for need. So just one kind of piece of the analytics part as we break all of these things down. But my man, that's it. That's the whole NFC.
Yeah, that is your NFC breakdown. Grades, kind of general gut feelings on these, and then also how it kind of relates to the consensus boards with however much weight you want to give to that data point. That's up to you to personally decide. Just keep in mind, consensus board usually does a pretty solid job of projecting players' careers. So it is not gospel, but it is a good note to look at.
It is a good note to look at. And producer Amber asked about Diego Pavia. That will be next week's show when we break down the AFC draft grades. Even though Pavia will not be technically a part of that, he is going to be a Raven. That's wild news. Well, we'll
yeah. He went to their workout and signed with them, but we'll see how long he's a Raven,
And producer Amber also coming in here clutch. Jonah Coleman was still on the board when at 108. So there were some other things I would have done there if I were the Commanders. But my man, thank you. And to everybody who tuned in, thank you all very much. Time is the most valuable thing that you have. So anytime you give some to us, we are forever grateful for it. I'm going to give Evo one last word, then we're going to get the fuck out of here. We will be back next week when we break down the AFC draft grades. And we'll see how my Brownies did.
Yeah. Last word, shout out to Arif Hasan again. I love the work that he does. He is very data analytics minded. He likes to have a lot of his takes backed based off of that. I think that he's an extremely level-headed guy who makes really good arguments on stuff. People who are coming at him for collecting other people's boards and putting them together to show people what everyone thinks and blaming him and pointing the finger for the consensus stuff, you're idiots. Just do better on that. And yeah. Shout out to Arif for always putting together some really good draft content.
Hell yeah. Guys, thank you very much. I am Mike. That is Evo. This has been Raw Dog Sports. We will be back next week. But until then, we're going to get the fuck out of here. See you.